Hey guys, McKay here. Hope you're having an awesome day as we're learning, especially at the beginning of a new week. We can oftentimes be so overwhelmed, or life comes at us in such a way that we can't quite grasp. Okay, here we are. Mondays are the worst. What do you deal with them? And so over the next 5 weeks, we're going to do these chillers that are literally going to, I believe, give us that frame of mind to chill when life comes at us, to know that when we press in and lean into God, that we're learning to truly be a chiller. We're learning to chill in the everyday circumstances of life. And as I was kind of preparing for today, one of the questions that I just strictly want to pose to you is, who do you trust? Who do you trust when it comes to your life, your faith, the decisions, your job, your relationships, whatever it is? Because pressing into God, leaning into friendships, leaning into spouses, our kids, leaning onto finances, all of these things shape and mold our decisions, but they also shape and mold our peace. And I don't mean like comfort zone, but I mean the true peace that you have when you're waiting on God to do something, when you're waiting on something to happen, that you get to that place where you just don't really know what's the next step. And so as you pose that question in your mind, who do you trust? You could probably name off 2 or 3 people, and I'm always a fan of the 3 braided cord, who is your closest circle. But oftentimes what comes from the circumstances of our life is we've learned to stop trusting ourselves. And when that happens, we don't believe that sometimes the voice from God, is that His orchestration, is that me doing this? And I want us to be in that place, because I'm still trying to figure it out myself, of realizing that we can press into each other, but it's all about leaning on the Lord for everything, and then He orchestrates as the source of our life to become what we need to be, which is to be more like Christ. So if you're going through a day, you're going through a season where everything's coming at you, more than likely you could very well be in God's will, because the enemy's mad and other people might be jealous of where you are in your peaceful place or in your place of stature. And you have to realize that when those things are coming, you have to stand back and go, God, you've brought me to this place. Why is it so hard? Why is following you so hard? Why is being in this ministry so hard? But that's the way it works. The more you're in God's will, the more that you strive to have peace. Because trust me, as the just chill guy, you don't think the enemy's not coming at me with things to make me frazzled and upset and angry and whatever. It happens to us all. But the thing that I find when it comes to trusting on God is that there's so much in His Word about that. And so I'm literally starting us today, Psalms 56:11, which is basic verse of, in God I have put my trust. I shall not be afraid, for what can man do to me? How much do we find ourselves on a regular basis being so petrified of losing our job, losing our relationships, our kids getting injured, or whatever it is, losing our status in life, to think that we're holding on to things that were never God intended. We're holding on to things that we put into our own hands, that we put together and orchestrated. But God's like, empty your hands so that I can give you the abundance of what I have planned and what I have planned for you. Because so much of our life, we revolve around Jeremiah 29:11, which is, the plans that God has for us is for a future and a hope. And that verse is true. But the thing that I've found, the more that I trust God, is I start to trust the voice that I hear from Him is turning me in the direction that I need to go for His purpose. And for those that have read Just Chill, there's a prayer in there that literally I cling to daily, and that is, God, use me where you have me, take me where you need me. And in order for me to pray that, I have to trust God that in every direction He's got me. Because when things come at me, I want to know that, all right, God, you knew this was coming, so I need you to provide the finances for that expense. Or, God, you knew this was coming at me, so you knew that this was going to be a hiccup to be able to get to the goal or to get to the plan. Because He shapes us by shaving away our past, by letting go of the things that allow us to just breathe. I say this on a regular basis, is we need to take 3 deep breaths before we make a decision or move in a direction. Because when you are trusting God, you are learning to let go of fear. You're not letting, anybody dictate the direction of your life. And as you learn to trust him more, he takes the people out of your life that you can't and shouldn't trust, because he's bringing the people into your life that you can trust. Because how many times have you had someone speak into your life, God's given me a word for you, and then you don't know what to do with that because sometimes it doesn't line up with what God may be saying to you. But that's what he wants us to do. He gives us that word so we can then go to him and he'll go, yeah, don't listen to that. Or, yeah, that's exactly what we've been talking about. So when it comes down to trusting, we have to first learn to trust God, then learn to trust ourselves, and then in that, not be afraid of what's coming, because we have nothing to fear. I mean, how cool would it be to walk into your job tomorrow knowing that God gave you the job, he gives you the paycheck, which then buys you the stuff in the house and everything else that's going on. So what is there to be worried about? What is there to be doubtful of? Now, it doesn't mean you won't have doubts. Doesn't mean that fear won't try to creep in, but that's when you then go to God and go, God, this is overwhelming. This is too much for me. What can I do? And so that jumps us back a little bit in Psalms when we go to verse 4 and 5 in chapter 4, which says, tremble and do not sin. So don't be in a hurry and start making agenda-driven decisions, but meditate in your heart upon your bed and be still. Offer the sacrifices of righteousness and trust in the Lord. And I think so many times we're like, okay, God, I've been praying for this for 3 days or 3 minutes and nothing has happened, so I'm moving in this direction. And so we've made a decision in fear or agenda. We've also made a decision in literally not waiting on the Lord. And sometimes, and oftentimes, you can ask someone, I do this when someone tells me that they're making a decision about something and don't know what the direction is. I'll go, well, what does God tell you? He says, well, God tells me to trust him. And you may have heard God say that to you, and he may be saying that to you right now. He says that to me constantly. And it used to be annoying at one point, but I've gotten to the point where I'm like, okay, and here's the reason why. And this is really what I want us to take away from this chiller today, is that when you learn to trust God, you learn to realize the things that he's brought you through is now your reference point for what he's going to take you to. Because everything that came from our past shaped us to where we are. You couldn't know what you know today then because you weren't in a place that you were ready to receive it. But you're learning to trust God, to not say, God, remove me from this situation, but God, I'm leaning into you no matter how brisk the winds get, no matter how devastating the storm feels. I'm trusting you because I'm not afraid. I'm passionate about where we're going, and you've got me, and I'm holding this tightly vested in our conversation so that people can't come in and shoot holes in it, because that happens so many times. Someone else's fear keeps you from moving forward with something. Now, the people that are giving you wisdoms, again, take them, thank them, hug them even, and then take it to God and go, God, what do you want me to do with this nugget? And you keep track of all the things that God has orchestrated in wisdoms to you so that you'll go, well, this thing that my pastor said to me was exactly what I needed, or this thing that my best friend or my spouse told me was just a reflection of what conversation I'd been having with God all along. So trust in the fact that every day you're talking to him, and you're talking to him all day long about everything. Because what I want you to realize is that when you start to lean into God and you hear his voice and you reference back to where he's blessed you in your life and removed you from your sinful past, there is no going back. You're learning forward the lessons and then applying and going, oh, this is what reaping and sowing is like when I do it God's way and in God's timing. Because when you're in the waiting, it goes back to this verse in Psalms 4:4, to be still. So if you're wondering, what do I do today? What was the last thing God told you to do? Then go there and start doing that, and then be still for him to take you to the next thing, because you're constantly praying, God, use me where you have me, take me where you need me. And in order for us to be able to do that, we have to be still and trust God. Trust him in everything. You can't just trust him in some things and then you take over the other things. Trust him in all things, because in order for us to be still, we have to take those breaths. We have to relax. We have to let go of our own agendas and realize that he gives us the desires of our hearts because he's making us more like Christ to be where God wants us to be. So go be in your place and trust him. And know that we're, again, referencing these verses when you need them this week, because it's through that we can all learn to just chill.